Hello guys, welcome back to another video. Today we will be looking at biology, and our first video on biology will be the human nervous system. This will be split into three parts. Homeostasis. Homeostasis is a process of keeping internal conditions constant. This is to allow key processes and conditions such as blood glucose, body temperature, and water balance, which are involuntary, to keep going because they are essential things. Homeostasis is also important for maintaining optimal conditions in the body for enzyme function and cell function. Many of the body systems are involved in homeostasis. And homeostasis mainly is the maintaining of these three conditions we talked about. So also many other body systems are involved in homeostasis. In addition, this nervous system coordinates actions by transmitting electrical impulses. Also, another way other body parts transmit chemical impulses called hormones, which we will learn about in a later chapter. So both of these impulses reach control centers, like the brain, the spinal cord, and the pancreas. These are from these notes you could derive some questions. For example questions could be describe the role of your nervous system. Give an example of a control center, which is quite a common one, and also give an example of homeostasis. Also, the electrical impulses travel along nerves, they're really fast. On the other hand, the hormones travel through the blood, so they're much slower. The human nervous system consists of the CNS, central nervous system, which is composed of the brain and the spinal cord. So here we have our flow chain of how the nervous system enables the body to respond to changes. So the receptors is sense organs, where we have a flow diagram under which we have a table corresponding to the flow diagram. So the sensory organs, skin, touch. This is quite straightforward actually, but the thing we need to learn about is the stimuli. The skin is touch, temperature, pressure, and pain. The nose is chemical in air. Tongue is a chemical in food. Ear is sound, and eye is light. Also, in the flow diagram, we can see something called sensory neurons and motor neurons. We'll be learning about them as well. So here are some keywords to remember when looking at this topic. So first one is homeostasis, maintaining constant internal environment. Receptor is something that detects a change in an environment. Effector, it's a muscle or gland that carries out a response. Stimulus is a change in the environment. Sensory neuron carries an electrical impulse from the receptor to the CNS. Relay neuron carries the impulse from the sensory neuron to the motor neuron. So it's almost stages. So it's sensory, relay, and motor. So that's the stages in the neurons. And the motor neuron carries the impulse from the CNS to the effector. Synapse is a tiny gap between two neurons. Reflex is an automatic response that does not require processing, and it helps an organism survive. For example, an example of a reflex action is a knee jerk. So if someone hits your knee, your leg just jerks. And also another reflex action is when there's too bright light, your eyes shut. CNS is a brain and spinal cord. The PNS is a peripheral nerve. So here are some flow diagrams I made just to show. So here on the right we see the stimulus response. So this is a stage it goes. So there's a stimulus, so which is a change in environment, and then a receptor which detects the stimulus and causes an impulse in the whatever thing it is, and the sensory neuron which carries the impulse from the receptor to the CNS. which goes to CNS, which is a brain or relay neuron in the spine, and then which goes to the motor neuron, which carries the impulse from the CNS to the receptor, and then the effector, which is a muscle or gland that releases a chemical, and then finally response, the body responds to a stimulus. Reflex arc. The reflexes are automatic or involuntary responses. The brain is not involved, so it's faster and protects us. Special relay neurons in the spine carry impulses from the sensory neuron directly to a motor neuron. The impulse is then sent to an effector for a super fast response. The synapse is a tiny gap between two neurons and the next one. The two neurons never touch each other as well. The electrical impulse has to be transmitted across the gap using chemicals called neurotransmitters. As the nervous impulse arrives at the synapse, it causes a chemical neurotransmitter to be released into the synapse. 2. The chemical neurotransmitter diffuses across the synapse. 3. The chemical neurotransmitter binds the receptors on the second neuron, which causes an impulse to be generated in the neuron. Crossing a synapse slows down the speed of a nervous system. Usually we can see practicals. For example, before an experiment, people drink caffeine, for example, and then they want to test if their reaction time changes. So I did the same practical and I found out that the reaction time increases after you drink caffeine. Thank you for watching.